we have a hypothesis, right, that there are a number of mistakes or lies that entrepreneurs tell themselves when they start a business. And some of that's perpetuated by what the current paradigm is, or the current conventional thinking. And a lot of that's perpetuated by current service providers or the SBA or anything like that. So the SBA has this list of the 10 things that entrepreneurs should do, or people wanting to start their own business that they should do. None of it has anything to do with enhancing their product or starting, to sell something. It's just all this paperwork and tax information.
Yeah, because that's the best use of their time, obviously.
Right. It's not creating a product or a service and then going to find a customer. It's fill out the paperwork, do a business plan, find a location. I mean, some of that stuff is important if you're, I assume, a restaurant or something like that, but it's not do all this administrative paperwork that takes months or weeks on end to do. And then the other thing that was interesting is if you want to start a business, you should go get training to start a business.
Well, I think that's they've got a lot of services that they need to push at the SBA and keep people busy, but at the same time, obviously a lot of the entrepreneurs that we're working with have put a lot of thought into what their business is. Mm-hmm. And I think once they get to that point of deciding that, hey, here's my idea, here's my way I'm going to be different in the marketplace, and then I've made the decision to launch this business and commit my time and my personal wealth and perhaps other people's personal wealth to this venture. The best use of the time isn't those administrative things you're talking about, and that's kind of ultimately why we started down the path with Miga, was to take some of those things off people's plates. So, if we can get to, I guess if we wrote that list, it'd probably be, make that decision to go forward. Somewhere along the way, we hope they call us to take all those other things, but the next two steps really are improve that product and find somebody to sell it to. And for the most part, those are the two steps that we hope people repeat, right, and that's the most successful businesses.
Well, one of the, I think that gets into one of the mistakes or lies that entrepreneurs would tell themselves, which is, I've got this idea and I've got this product or whatever, and I'm going to start this, but I've got to do all of this. I have to do all of this myself. I have to design the product. I got to find the customers, those are probably true, but I have to go source an accountant or go buy QuickBooks. I've got to be the tax expert and the HR expert and all that stuff and do it in my garage. And here at Miga, I think we have a slightly different approach on that, in that we don't know the passion and drive that you have for your product or service, but we know all those administrative things that actually will keep you from doing that passion and drive for your product or service. You probably didn't, unless you're an accountant, you probably didn't get in business to do accounting. You probably don't understand the accounting, and you don't understand the payroll taxes, or you don't understand the city licensing, and those are types of services at Miga that we could actually set you up with from the beginning that will take some burden off of you and allow you to focus on the product or service that you're starting.
So, the first thing that people often we hear as kind of what clients are telling themselves, we call it the lies they tell themselves, but the first thing is we're not big enough for that. So it's always something that when we get to some certain size, those things will be appropriate. And reality is that I think that was probably the mindset, and just the practical answer, 10, 20 years ago, when there weren't solutions that people had that could scale from really zero on up. So there's lots of challenges with are we big enough to do that?
Right.
And many reasons why they're the expectations of a smaller company as it relates to regulation, as it relates to taxes as it relates to banking, as it relates to judging the performance of that business, are virtually the same as if you're a $100,000 revenue company or a $100 million company.
That's right. And back in the, say, 15 or 20 years ago, if you wanted to put in an HR system, and your choices were fairly limited. It had to be a server-based environment. You had to have somebody sit there and maintain it. You had to have the programming. You had a big. It's a big investment. But with today's cloud-based technology, you can get into something for very little investment, and that's kind of the what Miga has done, which is take these services and administrative tasks that need to perform, create a solution around those, a service solution around those that leverages technology and our people, not your people, and allow you to have this world-class environment, whether it be HR systems, payroll, accounting, management, reporting, to drive your business and understand your results, as opposed to spending your time and energy yourself or your resources and cash on putting in these systems that need to be maintained by you, the business owner.
So the system side has changed quite a bit in the last decade or so with different forms of technology, but the people side is somewhat the same. And to a certain extent, young entrepreneurs, new businesses are correct when they say that they're not big enough on the people side, because it's not. If you look at your typical business and you say, well, I want to have someone in-house to do these things, the things such as managing your HR environment, such as providing bookkeeping and accounting advice services, a CFO kind of service, such as keeping track of all of your corporate records and things, such as doing payroll, all the things that we think of as the things that we try to take off of people's plates. We did some brief calculations and suggested that if you need all those resources and you want to spend kind of a best practice level benchmark on those resources, and you need maybe backup for those resources so that you're not completely dependent on one person, you very quickly get to a level that is somewhere between $8 to $10 million in revenue before you should even think of trying to do these things in-house.
And at that level of 8 to 10 million, then it is a different story. But I think as you're growing your business and you're understanding the levels and complexities, you think you need an accountant, you think you need a bookkeeper, you need a controller, you need a CFO, but you don't need those people all the time. As you're growing your business, you need a time, and there's a question that you have that says, I really wish I had some advice on how to affect this transaction or how to structure this debt or whatever the case may be. So, at Amiga, what we do is allow you to consume those resources when you need them, but not have to pay for them all the time as if they were on your staff. And the other side of that with Amiga is that the fees that you're charged, your monthly fee, includes all of that advice at no additional charge. So there is no hourly fee. So you call us the first day and you say, I need to structure some debt. You call us the second day and say, I'm looking to take a lease on a building. The third day, it's all included in your monthly fee. So there is no additional surprise. There's no hourly rates. You consume those resources. We're there to help you as you need them. And you can call us every day. Don't call us twice a day. But no.
So the other kind of the second lie, I think, compounds this, that people talk about, that we're just not big enough. But the second message is that we can do that later.
Yeah.
And you can, but our experience has been that doing it later takes about 3 times as long and at least twice as much money.
That's right.
To clean things up versus starting from the beginning, doing it right, doing it small, and letting it grow with your business.
Yeah, I think we've all been, there's an inside joke with accountants and tax professionals that at the end of the year, they all have these clients that show up and they've got they call them the shoebox job. So the client comes in and has, all the canceled checks, all the bank statements, all the records from, probably not all the records, but maybe half the records of the business for the year, and says, here you go, my bank needs this income statement and balance sheet and I need to do a tax return, so just call me when you're finished. Well, that's as you said, that's a very hard task to do. You're not sure you have complete records, you're not sure, and frankly, the end product of that is probably not as good. So, I think entrepreneurs and people doing startups say, well, I'll take care of it later, I'll do it later. But, in our view, doing it right from the beginning, having it set up correctly, not only ensures that, you have the right financial information and you have the right tax information, but you're getting the best information to run your business at a cost that is, very minor as it relates to the benefit that you're getting from the service. So, a startup from our, in our service, for as little as a couple $100s a month, can have, all their records, all their tax records, all their bank records, everything maintained for them. And so that you don't have that shoebox at the end. You don't have that unknown as to what this is going to cost me. You already have that figured out.
So that other lie that they tell each other, kind of, again, building on the last one, was that we won't get caught. We can do it later if we won't get caught.
Yeah.
And perhaps, but often people do. And the cleanup costs of doing things after the fact is one element, but the compliance costs, the fines, mm-hmm. How many times have we taken over a particular client and they soon send us I got this certified letter. It's never good. It's never good.
No, I don't even want to open it so I can email it to you. It's scary for a small business, and the reason and it's scary. Well, I would say it's scary for anybody, but I think the reason that they get themselves in that position is that they weren't proactive in handling these, whatever it may be, payroll taxes, income taxes, business licenses, state registrations. I mean, there's so many things that a small business owner needs to take care of that, frankly, if they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, they don't have time to do it.
Right.
I mean, they should be out there selling their product. I mean, if their livelihood is dependent upon, how much they personally can sell and and leading their organization, they don't really have, I don't think it's at top of mind that they should say, oh, my payroll taxes are due today, or wonder if my business registration with the state is current, or do I have my current city's licensing? I mean, those things fall through the cracks, and frankly,
it's real easy to do.
It is really easy to do, and the cost of compliance, like you said, is small compared to the cost of rectifying a mistake.
Right.
In both time and dollars.
We always talk about wanting those things that are the everyday things to be just like breathing, right? Mm-hmm. Those are, you don't want to go around thinking about breathing. You want those things just to be done. Mm-hmm. You want those things to get done proactively and to not have to worry about them and not have them hanging over your head, so that you can, again, focus on the two most important things, which are making a better product and selling it every day.
Right. One of the other things that are small businesses, the way they run their business is basically out of their checkbook. So, the joke is, I must be making money. I have a positive balance in my checkbook. And to some degree, that's true, I think. But one of the services that we can provide in that regard is that as we account for these transactions on a daily basis, we can tell the small business owner exactly what his cash position is, exactly what his AR, his accounts receivable or accounts payable position is as well. So there's a little peace of mind knowing that, did I write that check in there? Did I not do it? I mean, we account for those on a daily basis. So if there's a situation that you need to know, you can go onto our website, pull up your site on us, give us a call, whatever the case is, and we can let you know immediately where you stand in that position, which is, I think, a big peace of mind for a lot of small business owners.
Yeah, I think a very different mindset than for us versus potentially other approaches that people take, which is that we want things to be up to date every day, and that the information should have value to you in running your business, making decisions today, not just being something I have to do at the end of the year, because I have to do a tax return.
Right. Well, the paradigm is currently is I got my bank statement in the mail. I need to send that off to my accountant or bookkeeper. They're going to give me a financial statement that has no explanation to it whatsoever. It's just a bunch of numbers on a page, and they send it back to me and say, "Here's your bill." And it's completely different than the way we think our clients want to interact with us, which is, we account for their transactions. We provide that management information and financial information so that at any given time they can make an important business decision or just understand how they're doing as a business. It doesn't have to be the end of the month. It doesn't have to be the end of the year. It's available for them to consume anytime they want.
Right. And whether that's financial records or operational kind of information, I think it's real important to find the right balance between the financial results, whether that's the cash flow of the business, or whether that's the financial accounting view for taxes view of the business. But it's also important to understand what we're producing in terms of what is that getting us, how efficient are we, how effective are we in the sales process, and to look at that in comparison to other organizations. Most importantly, I think one of the things that we try to orient all of our clients as we give them advice on is to the margins, right? That's the thing that people really need to understand, much more importantly about their business. What are their margins, particularly for a growing business, particularly for a new business, versus what's my profitability.
Yeah. One of the things that, as you were speaking, I was going back to the comment that you had earlier, which was, we can do this later. And a great war story of one of our current clients, if we can do this later, was they were thinking about it in putting in a contract tracking system. And they, not big enough, didn't have enough time, whatever the case may be. And one of their largest customers called them at the end of the year and said, well, per our contract, we've exceeded our revenues with our amount that we paid you guys, your revenues from us. So we would like our 20% rebate to the tune of $300,000 back.
Right.
So
surprise,
surprise. And that's one of the services that we offer at Miga, is that we take those contracts, whether it be your lease or your customer contracts, significant vendor contracts, loans, whatever, and put those in our system with the tracking metadata and time frames and what have you to understand what the financial and compliance ramifications of those are, so that when when it says once I pass $500,000, 20% rebate kicks in, we make you aware of that before those situations arise. So once again, the cost of compliance a lot less than the financial surprise of the big bill. Miga provides the payroll and payroll tax service for our clients. As a small business owner, if you're doing it yourself, you have to understand that the federal requirements for filing payroll taxes, there's state requirements for filing payroll taxes. In the city of St. Louis or other municipalities across the country, there are local requirements for filing payroll taxes. They all have different due dates, they all have different forms, they all have different requirements on how to submit. With our clients, that's all taken care of. So we run payroll for you, your employees get paid, the payroll taxes are scheduled appropriately, and those are remitted on your behalf through us.
So I think the fourth lie we've always talked about is that we can't afford that. And what I think in the past, many organizations couldn't afford this service because, as we talked a little bit about before, it was the entry point was so high for each component that all of a sudden you're paying a minimum amount for for somebody to do your payroll, you're paying a minimum amount for somebody to do your taxes, you're paying a minimum amount for bookkeeping, you're paying a minimum amount for each of the applications. And even on the technology side, that minimum was quite high.
Yes.
I mean, it could have been tens of thousands of dollars
Right.
for different organizations. On the technology side, that's come down tremendously, but it's still, in an individual company, they can be a high initial entry point of a few $100s in many cases,
Right.
just for each of those pieces. What we've tried to do is bundle all those together so that we can create get efficiencies in that minimum entry point, and that the clients can use the services that make sense for them, and they can use them starting in essence at zero and scaling up.
Right.
As they grow, the services just grow with them, and they grow at a more and more efficient rate in terms of the fees that we charge. I don't know that anybody else is doing it this way that we've seen in the marketplace. So,
A couple of examples on that. And we've had a couple of clients that have been very successful with us, and they started out as just this sole proprietor, the one person who has their business and doesn't have employees. So there is no payroll, there is no really HR component to their business. And as they got more successful, they hired their first employee, which is a big deal. It's very scary for small businesses to do that because of all the payroll issues and the compliance issues. But our service allows them to hire that first employee to take on that responsibility and to take on that big step as a business, and really not worry about it. We take care of all that information, and the incremental cost of that business is significantly less than even going out and doing and buying their own payroll service and having to do that information and input all that information themselves. And I think that cost of it's too expensive for us. One of the things that small business owners and entrepreneurs don't realize is the cost of them doing all of this themselves too.
Right.
I mean, it takes a significant amount of time, if you think about it, to account for your daily transactions, and to account for your payroll, and to manage your contracts, and to manage your customers, and to manage your vendors. And there's certain pieces of that are very value added to the small business, but there's a lot of that is just administrative. You have to do it. It's not an optional activity, but the business owner's time could be spent doing things that are much more valuable to that business, as opposed to those have to do's, not like to do's.
Yeah, it compounds. You're not hiring new people because you're sitting around, you don't have enough to do. You're usually hiring new people because you're growing. In the case of the example I think you're referring to, going from doing services out of someone's, in essence, home to opening a store and a retail operation and growing the business very, very aggressively.
Right. And the quote that we got from that individual is, before I hired you guys, I was spending all my time doing all these things that I really didn't want to do, wasn't qualified to do, and frankly wasn't doing them correctly and on time. So by hiring us to do that, it allowed her to focus on her business, focus on what she likes to do, and leave the rest to us, and take that worry, take that burden, take that work effort off of her plate. No pun intended. And she's a caterer, by the way. And and focus on growing her business, which 2014 is going to be a great year for her, actually. So. Well, yeah, there's really no business that is too small. I think a lot of times we'll run into that. I'm just too small to hire you guys, and that's not necessarily. I mean, it's absolutely not true.
In fact, there's a requirement for the way we designed our services, is that it needs to work for someone who is a sole proprietor and values their time enough to recognize that they can make better use of that time dealing with their client than they can some of the administrative stuff. So we have minimum entry points for startups and sole proprietors that really start at a couple $100s a month, and then as their business gets bigger, as they or not, it's scaled to the size of their operation. We truly believe that the best use of a business owner's time is not doing the things that we do. It is absolutely working with their client, being in the marketplace, working with their product to improve it, direct management of their employees if they have them, to get the most out of those resources, and to improve, again, the services they offer to their client. The things that we as Miga do for them, they should be consumers of that information, not creators of that information. So that's our whole philosophy in terms of how we provide services to folks, and how we continue to try to improve our services to them.
There's a lot of ways Miga enters into an organization. There's probably three scenarios. One is a startup business. They've never done anything like this before. They don't really know all the things that they're supposed to do, and we can help them guide that way. There's also on the other end of the spectrum, there's a more mature business that probably has some resources, whether they're external resources or internal resources, that are currently performing some of these tasks that Miga does. And the third situation is a growing business that is kind of in the middle. So, I'm big enough now where I really know I need these things. I don't know whether to have that internal resource to do this or hire external providers to do that. In every case, Miga's services and the pricing for those services, I think we found to be better than what the individual could go out and buy in the marketplace on their own. And I think it's a better product. It's more complete services, and at a cost that you could not really afford to even get one of those services for, whether it be an internal accountant or a external bookkeeper.
Yeah, we try to save people money in every case, but at the same time, we're very much about getting them enhanced information to make better decisions, or to free up that time from off the owner's plate, and to allow them to focus on those key elements of the business that are really going to make them more money and going to determine the success of their business. Right. It's a real challenge. That we keep talking about these things that they shouldn't do, and it's difficult, because the things they should be doing are the going out and getting the new revenue, improving their product. All those things are critical to the success. At the same time, a lot of the failure in businesses is also because of a few mistakes, and that they don't have their arms around some of the key operational things, and they don't understand how they're consuming cash, and they don't understand their margins and those kinds of issues. We want them to focus on understanding that information, making decisions on that information, not necessarily creating that information.
Right. So one of the tools that we have on our website, which I think a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs could actually use, is to go out and understand the cost, of what doing these services internally or externally, or a combination of both, whether it be owner performed or have other resources to do. So we have a tool on our website called the Benefits Calculator.
The idea behind this Benefits Calculator is really, it's almost a benchmarking tool. And what we've done is we looked at a number of different studies out there for that different organizations have provided, that looked at the costs of providing HR services and finance, accounting services, payroll, and so on. And we use those factors across a number of things, plus our experience in our own client base, to determine, what do these things typically cost, and what do people typically spend on them, and
the benchmarks with payroll providers and bookkeepers and external CPAs and that whole package of services that either the business owner needs, doesn't know they want, or whatever, but are packaged together and under this benchmarking study. And then we also take into account the owner's time, which I think is always undervalued when it looks at, people are just looking at hard dollars and saying, my bookkeeper's X and my CPA's Y and I paid my payroll provider Z, but But as the business owner in that environment, I still have to provide them all the information. And I still have to do a lot of work to get them that information. So we also include a calculation based on business owners' time spent. And I think that looks at the total package and provides a benefit compared to, if, as you select one of our packages, compared to the cost of our services. And
it's really misleading as well when you look at the technology. I love there's some great technologies out there today, and these organizations have developed some tools that are so much better than they were in the past. The problem, though, is that you still have to put the information in.
Right.
It's great they show you the reports that come out of the system, but those reports are only there if someone is actually, as we talk about, feeding the beast, right? Making sure that the information that goes in is timely, complete, accurate, and then you can use that information. So that's a lot of what we focus on is doing that component. So, and it goes into the cost. What we saw in the benchmarking is that there's a lot of hidden kind of time associated with those activities. So what we ask people to do along 7 or 8 different functions is to go and tell us, is this something that you do? Is this something you hire somebody internally to do? Do you have an outside provider that provides this component of the service, or some combination thereof? And by those, we've built some algorithms that predict what the average costs were for organizations, and we've found it to be quite accurate.
Right.
Any organization can vary very substantially based on their own performance, but at the same time, I think this gives people a very good idea of what they're typically going to be spending on the services around finance and records management and HR and payroll and so on.
One of the things that it highlighted as we were putting this together that highlighted for me was a lot of the different components. And one of our typical clients would have things that, these components that they would need to feed. So they would have a banking accounting function that they needed to make sure was reconciled and up to date. They would have a payroll component that needs to be input, processed, and then taxes paid. They would have an HR record keeping component that they need to maintain so that they're in compliance with all the federal, state, and local regulations. They're going to have some kind of system, whether it's a big stack of papers on the corner of somebody's desk or a filing cabinet or whatever it is, that manages their corporate records, whether that be official corporate records, so state registrations and board minutes and those things, or practical information such as contracts or leases, or that. How many times have we contact our clients and say, where's the current, you guys just signed a new client, where's the contract for that client? And somebody says, I don't have the signed copy. Right. I've got a draft copy. Well, that's a lot of businesses run that way, where they don't have the actual copy. Somebody's got it in their briefcase. But you start adding up all those components of either technology or record keeping or filing, and it really highlights how much administrative work really needs to go into running a business, and somebody needs to manage that. And whether you hire somebody internally or have it pieced out externally, I think you're looking at a very significant risk of non-compliance and and creating corporate risk for not having that buttoned down.
It's also hard for people to go back and forth. It's difficult if you're a business owner to go from dealing with your customer, addressing them from a service standpoint, selling a new product, whatever, to 5 minutes later going to read some notice that came from some jurisdiction about some activities that you need to do for healthcare reform, or things that you need to do because of your particular entity status and so on. It's very difficult to go back and forth between
and
those
typically
things.
that stuff,
people aren't very efficient in doing it that way.
And the stuff that you don't like doing doesn't get done.
The lie, I can do that later.
Yeah, I can do that later. I'll put that off. I know I need to do that, but I'll get to that. I think every client we have, they always talk about it's much more fun to go out and sell a new project or land a new account or whatever. I don't think they ever said, boy, I really hate giving up this payroll processing to you guys.
No.
But those are, small business owners, entrepreneurs, we talked about this, they have to wear many hats. They think they have to wear all the hats, but in reality, they should only wear a few hats. They should wear the product development hat or the service development hat. They should wear the marketing hat, and focus on those things that are going to drive that top line revenue. And let us help you
Improve their margins.
Let us help them understand margins so they can improve their profitability. But focus on those things that they got into business for to begin with, which probably wasn't accounting and HR record keeping, payroll, and corporate records management.
Right.